There you go.
Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Do I have approval of the minutes of Tuesday, July 19th, 2022?
I move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
You do? Here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion has approved and carried. Okay, utility relief request disputes, utility billing and fee waivers. I'm sure everyone has had time to look at it. Okay, do I have a motion to approve as staff recommendation?
Yes, I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
You do?
All right, any comments?
Very thorough. I thought it was really good.
All right,
Remember, your new ordinance is in effect. So
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion is approved and it's been carried. So, all right, let's move to public works status.
first thing I wanted to let you guys know, and I know we've talked about the streets that we're going to do overlays on this year, but I just wanted to go over them one more time. This will go out for bids. So I wanted to capture any street that you guys might have seen you feel needs to be addressed so that we can look at it and put it in with the bid request. So I'm going to go over these again. Elk Creek Road, First Street between Hemlock and Larch, East Monroe, and it's from Spruce to Elm, and then Elm to the end. East Washington, Hemlock to Spruce, East Van Buren, Hemlock to Spruce, West Van Buren, Hemlock to Ocean, Spruce from Second to Fir, Elm from Fifth to the end, East Dawes from Hemlock to address number 140, and then West Kenai. So a project for next year, because we don't have the funding this year to do it, and some of you recall me mentioning in one of our meetings that our Mark Scott that supports our GIS mapping system that we keep all of our infrastructure in had unexpectedly passed away. This young guy in his 50s. His business partner and life companion has taken the business over. So we're giving her a chance to kind of get on her feet. And so I think this project is appropriate for next year for those two reasons. It gives her some time and us a chance to get funding from budget committee. But we'll take that spreadsheet that has been in existence since Cruz Flores was here in the 90s and put that into our GIS mapping. And so we will have the same thing that we have right now is when you mouse over any infrastructure in our GIS mapping, we're putting all of our maintenance information. So on water lines, you can look and see when was the last time we had a break, in addition to what size the line is and all that. But it'll tell you when we had a break or last time there was a repair there, what type of break was it? A service line, a main, that type of stuff. The same thing will be in the roads. You click over a road, it's going to tell you the condition of the road. It's going to tell you the last time we did an overlay or if we had to remove it because of a sinkhole, and so on and so forth. And so, it'll be a more effective tool than a spreadsheet. I think the downside of that is I was able to share the spreadsheet with you. As of this point, I don't know how I would do that with our GIS mapping, but I think as committees, I can give you guys access to our mapping or we can pull it up and look at it together on a shared screen. So I'm working out how I can make sure you guys have the visibility to that information. The outside world doesn't, for obvious reasons. Part of that is our homeland security practices that we don't want the broad world to be able to see where all of our critical infrastructure is. And so it's really an asset management tool for us. But we're just trying to get away from the old archaic way of we did things and really get into tools that are more efficient and effective for us. So that'll be a project next year that I talked to the budget committee about. So our process will stay the same as how we evaluate roads and how they come to you and all that. It's the tool by which we manage it that would be changing. So it should be much more effective, easier to update and keep that current and we're not having to do walks through town to re-audit. The drone thing was not something we could do. When I talked to 2 or 3 different drone companies, they said the issue that they're running into is when they do drone projects, if there's people involved at all, there's a whole different layer that they have to go through because a person is in the visible video. And if you're using that video for any kind of mapping tool where other people see someone in the video, there's got to be an approval process and all this. So it wasn't an effective way to try to get a current status of our streets. So the guys are just going to have to audit it one last time before it goes into our GIS mapping. So another reason next year is more reasonable for us to do that. So that's a project we'll be looking at.
And exactly what is it that we do? I mean, do we go in and just repair the roads? Or-
There's no gravel streets in this. It is all just pavement preservation.
Okay, all
So if
right.
it's spidering or there's potholes that have been repaired numerous times that have to now be cut out and rebuilt, patched before
Okay.
they do an overlay on it. It just means the base is failing because the road is old and it's received high traffic. Maybe we've done infrastructure repairs and that street has a number of patches in it where we've repaired water lines or a sewer belly. And so there's been a patch and that patch has become compromised. So there's a number of things that lead us to do an overlay, but we force rank those on that spreadsheet, if you will. And, you know, basically saying, is it in good condition? Because we just did an overlay last year. Is it in fair condition because it is approaching a time when we're going to have to address it? Or is it failing, poor condition?
Okay, great.
And then we say, what's wrong with it? We had a water line blowout at Well Park, whatever it is. And that spreadsheet is always changing. And so to keep that updated is quite high maintenance.
I do have one area that I've seen that does need some attention. So I can get with Trevor
Mhm.
after the meeting and let you know exactly where it is.
Yeah, please do, because some of them qualify as a patch.
Well, yeah, this is it's deteriorating and it's near some
Yeah.
city, you know, where you have the round access.
Yeah.
So I'm just afraid that it during winter.
Definitely shoot an email, let us know where it's at.
Okay.
Paving is typically block to block. Patching is something less of that.
Yes,
So that's kind of the difference between that.
very good.
The budgets are different for paving preservation versus patching for that very reason. The details to do an overlay on a street is very different than just doing a patch, you know? You love these lights.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hello, it's like, okay, you finally wake up. Okay, very good.
If there's no other streets that you guys have seen that you feel need to be added to this or considered, then I'll get this ready to go out to bid. And again, it's in this year's budget, so it can happen anytime between the end of this year on into spring of next year. It's always weather dependent when it
Yes.
comes to paving. And so that's that.
And Karen, I'm sure that some of us will be happy to help, walk the streets.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Walk the
Yeah.
streets. I
Definitely,
know
yeah.
Steve was very excited about doing that,
and we'll have no drones.
So-
No
Would have been
drones.
Yeah.
building a.
And we kind of talked about that before, and I really appreciate that help because as you know, it's 4 miles of town and you got to put eyes on every single one of these streets. And it worked okay when we had Carolyn do it. But your residents, I mean, you haven't been through a paving class. A lot of people don't understand what they're saying that tells you that the sub base is failing. And so it's more cosmetic for you guys. And so as much as we appreciate the help, when we're getting ready to put it in our mapping system, it probably needs to be our roads guys so that it's as tight and accurate as we possibly
Good.
can. Carolyn did a great job in just updating it because it had been about 3 or 5 years since it had been updated. And so it was tremendous help to just get us to a good starting point. And then the road guys had to go out and just re-look at everything. And so thank you. But I'm going to assign it to the road team just so that I know that it's as tight as we can get it to put it in GIS. But thank you. We may recruit you for some other aspects of that. So I'll reserve the right.
You bringing water to the road crew? Or
That's why we-
Yeah, the
on hot days?
come to you guys and say, we need help. So that's that. Questions on the road topic before we move on?
No, I think it's good.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, other projects, our phase one, of course, has been assigned to Windsor, so they're busy with the phase one water resiliency. We're trying to get phase two ready to pull the trigger and get it out to bid. Business Oregon still has it and doing their review before they give Tessa the final okay for us to get bid docs out.
Okay.
Once that happens, it'll be the same process as phase one. We'll go through a panel interview with the candidates that submit. There'll be a mandatory project pre-walkthrough. And so it'll be exactly the same as phase one. And then when phase three comes along, which is ultimately our tank rebuild, we're a good year out from that.
Yes.
Same exact thing happens. Okay, so that's going to be consistent all the way through the phases. Now, with phase three, we have not secured all of our funding. So Business Oregon is still in the very early stages of deciding what funds we qualify for that tank rebuild. So they asked us to reduce that down into smaller phases. So that's the tank rebuild and running the lines along 101. And so we broke those into two separate so that they can look at the funding separate on that. So we don't know where that's going to end up. That's still in Business Oregon's hands. And until I get a call from them saying, okay, we're officially inviting you to apply for this loan. Right now, I put my letter of interest in. They've accepted the project and it's under their review. And so the next stage will be them sending me official email saying that you have been approved to submit your loan request for these funds. And then we do it and we wait to see if we get it versus everybody else that puts in for it. And so it's a slow process, as you know, but that's where we are as of today. So we're getting.
Yeah, this is Doug. You know, based on the tour we got of the water system, you know, at least three of us think we're all experts now. We saw two of the three tanks, right, guys? And
Yes.
when you're talking about a tank rebuild, I just want to make sure. So which tank is that?
And the only tank that we're looking at doing anything with concrete tank.
Right. It's a big one that's been patched. We saw it on our tour. It's been
Yeah.
patched a few times.
So geographically, it's the one up behind the public works yard.
It's huge.
Yeah, are you sure we got to that one? We got to the
Yes,
big
we did.
steel one. We got to the little steel one. I don't remember going up to the concrete one. Did we?
Yes.
So Doug, the other two, obviously the one on the north side, our little tank. And
Yeah, I saw that.
Then the one at the South Talavana cache site, which is
To get to it.
almost just across the highway from
Right.
the very
Right.
Well, the one
Right.
south entrance of town.
Right. It's a big steel tank, right?
It is, big brown steel
Okay.
tank.
Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the third one if we got there.
You know, Doug, I think you're right. We didn't get to the concrete one.
That's right.
The one that had patches on it, really, those are access ports for inspection. Those weren't steel patches put on that tank.
Right.
I think that's the one that Scott was thinking of, but the concrete
Yeah.
one we didn't get to because we didn't have time and it was
Right.
up in the yard, as I
Right.
recall.
Right. Okay. All right. And once again, my memory's good. So we saw the big steel one, the baby steel one, but we didn't see the concrete one. And it's the concrete one that's going to be rebuilt at some point, we
Yeah,
hope.
that's a bummer. I thought you guys went to all three of them, but we can arrange for you guys to go up to that one easily since it's just one location and it wouldn't
Okay.
take long.
Sure.
Um,
See it.
I think that's the only, I think that's the only thing we missed. We saw the headwaters and the treatment plant and the other tanks. We just didn't have time for that. So that might be a good effort since it's on the list for being rebuilt.
Yeah, so when we plan this, and Trevor and I can take you guys up there, when we plan it, what I'd like to do is have you guys have the map in your hand that was presented to council and Business Oregon for what we're actually going to be doing and the positioning of the new tank that's going to be built, because it really puts things into perspective. And we had the engineering company stake out exactly where that tank's going to be sitting.
Mhm.
And the improvements of the new road, not new road, but improve the existing road that gets up to that so that all the equipment can go up there to build this thing.
Sure.
Because right now it's pretty much just a little trail road, if you will, that gets up to our tank. But anyway, the conference center had to go look at that because that sits on their property. They're signing a new amended easement to allow us to build the new tank and so forth. So visually, their board needed to see that and understand where that tank was going to be sitting and how that would impact potentially their zip line and all those factors. So it's taken a long time to get where we are with them signing off on that easement. And so, and they're not the only property owner. There's another property owner that our road just slightly goes over their property. So we're also having to work with them to get them to sign off on the easement. So all these things take a lot of time.
Yep.
So there's a proposed additional line to go down 101, is that right?
Correct.
And is that part of the tank project or is that a separable element?
That is, well, they asked us to break it down into a separate level within that phase 3. So we did, but it is all part of phase 3 of the new tank and then that redundant line along 101. So if anything happened with the line in town, we would have a redundant backup line, if you will, to get water to south into town.
Yeah.
So theoretically, they could just give you the tank money and not the other money for the 101 work, theoretically.
They could, but
Theoretically, yeah, not ideal, but possible, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the status of water resiliency. A First Street Bridge that came up on a copy with the counselor yesterday. That is in FEMA's hands. And as you guys know, with the 4 generators that we chased funding with FEMA last year, they kept us waiting a whole year before they told us anything about it. FEMA doesn't give us status updates like when you're getting a loan. A grant is a whole different process. And so FEMA just says, we'll call you when we call you. Don't call us, we'll call you, kind of a thing. And so you can imagine the amount of people that are applying for FEMA grants. And so the city put a bid out, hired Civil West to handle this for us.
Okay.
And so they're handling the paperwork that obviously we review everything and they work with us, but they're doing all that work for us. And once we hear something, only thing that is going to happen with that is we're going to finish the initial review that began years ago. And they had asked for over $1 million in funding to retrofit the bridge and they did not get it. So the budget committee gave them some subset of dollars to stabilize those pilings that meet the bridge base. And that's all that was done. So we're going to kind of pick up from there and say, based on that, what seismic things have changed and how do we get to where we need to be today to make sure that bridge doesn't fall apart in any event. And then the decision will be made by a bridge expert. ODOT comes and inspects it every year. And our report has been fairly good. We need to do some maintenance on it. And before we start investing any money on that sub base that a car actually drives over, we need to see if the bridge is sound, because all that should be done at once. So hopefully, when they do the determination, we're able to retrofit it as it stands today, and we're in good shape. If not, if they come back and they say it does not meet the standards in any form or fashion, kind of like our water tank, then we would have to look at rebuilding it. And that would all go to council. They would make that call.
Oh, boy.
Not Public Works, not the committee, not anybody else. It would all go to the council. And so our responsibility is to get that data, bring it to them, and they provide direction for what they want us to do. And hopefully we would be able to give them some kind of idea on funding. So once the experts tell us what the situation is, then I can start looking for funding opportunities so that it's not coming out of our general funds. If there's another low entrance loan, is there something in emergency management that we might qualify for? Because obviously this is the whole reason we're looking at that. So we're not separated from the north end of town.
Yeah.
You know, are there grants?
That would be a bad thing.
A bad thing. I mean, how would you get around? I mean, you know, I know the detour, but that would make the traffic study very difficult. Yeah, I know that would be very difficult.
So that's.
I've been thinking about it.
Process. And so I try to help people not get ahead of themselves on what's actually going to be done, because until we know what we're dealing with, we don't know ourselves what the next step is. And so that's where we are with that. The topic of trash came up again yesterday, and I did invite everybody that has been talked to by a resident to go to the next Parks Committee meeting because they're going to talk about that. Provided a spreadsheet to Bruce yesterday, telling everybody how many cans are in town, where they are and stuff like that. But that really belongs in the Parks Committee more than Public Works. But I know all of you guys at some point have been asked by residents or seen yourself the issues we have in the summer with trash. And so trying to put that in perspective before we just broad brush it and say, you know, add a can at every beach access, which was suggested. That's a huge financial hit to the city, not only to have the cans made, but then for our porter service to pick those up every day, twice a day. And so, or if we decide to increase the frequency 3 times a day, that's a huge hit to my budget. So I told Bruce, let's please put this in perspective before we just run out and do this, because I don't think people realize, not to minimize the impact of trash, we have to really decide the best way to deal with it so that we're not taking that hit long term. Kurt really pulls cans out seasonally in the summer to add to what we have out there, and then pulls them back when summer's over to try to help manage the trash. So we're looking at things like that instead of just broad brushing it and putting more cans everywhere, you know. So go to the Parks Committee, listen to the Parks Committee and see what the committee comes up with, because it really belongs there, like I say.
Sure. Or have cleanup crews, you know, just volunteers, just, hey.
I have to
there.
say, we are blessed with some phenomenal, very loyal years they've been doing this every day on the beach. And those are the folks that are really my eyes, and they'll text Trevor and I both and say, hey, we see stuff here. We picked it up. We bagged it. If your guys will come by and get it. We have a great community of helpers. Your Sol group.
Yes.
Each, I mean, we're lucky because not a lot of communities have the level of support that we have. And so just think about that for a minute. If we didn't have that, and that too is added to the porter service, although they don't manage the beach, of course, but just the impact to state parks, you know, it's big. So those people are like trash angels, you know. I mean, seriously, it is a tremendous amount of help. So especially after events, you know. But I do have to say, the Saturday's concert in the park, I did a trash sweep and I had one Xerox box of trash, and that's it.
Good.
And it was
Excellent.
near the stage where we had some out of town visitors, and everybody else packed out what they brought in. So I was like, this is a beautiful thing.
Leave no trace.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just a note of
Motto.
paying attention. Jen is going to be putting out notices to all the committees, because we'll have some terming out at the end of the year. We do on this committee as well. So watch for that. Help me recruit some folks that would love to join our committee. I don't know if any of you remember, but the Public Works Committee was actually reduced in size because we've had such a challenge getting people to join. When people talk to me about it, I relieve them in the worry that they feel they need to be an engineer to join this committee, and they don't. As you guys seen, I mean, it helps to have that background because you understand the issues, but it's not impossible if you're not. And so it's really about taking the time to kind of look at the master plan and see what those projects are, because those are really our committed projects that the community and staff and council and budget committee has earmarked as our priorities. So those are the holy grail first and foremost to us. And then all the other projects that come up all during the year, obviously secondary to that. That's where it's great to be able to chase grants and things for those, because they weren't planned projects, but things happen. And it doesn't mean they're not bona fide, but having someone come in and actually look at those master plans, understand what that's about. You don't have to be an engineer to get it. The descriptions are very easy. I keep a spreadsheet of those that was started back when Carolyn was here. It's on the website. That'll tell you the actual page of the master plan to go and see the details. So we make it as easy as possible. So think about people, you think about the folks that have come and brought issues to us, have gone to council, have gone to the budget committee, any other forum that have asked about it. I'd like to recruit them. Come help us, you know. This committee is going to be really busy when the transportation plan gets approved, because that's going to be handed right over here. And you guys have a responsibility to vet every one of those projects, just like we did in the master plan. And we see the viability of those. We see how those projects may need to be modified to be executable. We look at where the funding would come from. How will we pay for these things? So you guys are going to be busy. So we're going to have to go through that and start looking at future projects that we would take to the council and say, here's what the committee feels is important and viable, and kind of force rank it, just like we did with the master plans. It should follow that same model. It is a master plan that we've got to take and actually see. There's projects that flushed out of the master plan that we have not done and we will never do. And so when we update that spreadsheet and you look at the master plan, you'll see that conditions change from when these projects come up, and they are no longer viable projects. And that's communicated to the council and say, this is why we don't choose to take this forward. And it's their call. You know, they may say, bring me some variation of it that will work. They may send you back to the drawing board several times, but that's just what we did with the water and wastewater master plans. And so this transportation will be the same exact way. And the bulk of that falls in public works. So think about the folks that have come to those meetings. Think about the folks that have given us good input on those meetings. Because I like to say, brought concerns forward, help us solve that. I'll be on the committee and help us solve it, you know. So think about it. I'm going to be reaching out to some folks, and I'd ask you guys to do the same thing. We'll have 2 seats open. And so, like I say, Jen will be advertising probably in September. So start talking to folks. Okay. Trevor, any other projects that I haven't touched on?
I would just encourage everyone to go down to the Matanuska pump station. The exterior down, the asphalt's patched back, the generator is, and had an official startup with the generator. Everything's running good. Next project we're going to do in there is start moving the controls around to the exterior walls. But take a look at the exterior. It's got really good.
It looks really nice.
Yeah. We also are starting a mixing zone study. We're going to do a mixing zone study out in the wetlands for the wastewater treatment plant. It's part of our permit process through DEQ. So we hired a firm out of the valley to help us perform a mixing zone study. Pretty much where our final product goes through the wetlands, it eventually ends up in Ecola Creek. And that's where the mixing zone study will take place, is at Ecola Creek, where our product enters Mother Nature. Okay, that's it.
Anything you guys have questions on that we haven't updated you on?
No, I just wanted to have a shout out for the Eye on Water project in the Cannon Beach Community Bulletin. Came out, it was fantastic. And with the September the 6th at Farmers Market between 1 and 5, there'll be like a demo and a learning. talk there with Darrell Walker and a few others. And then on the next day here between 5 and 7 p.m. at City Hall.
And it'll be right out front because there's actually a meeting in here. So they'll be right out front with tables and whatnot and a repeat performance of what they did at.
And then what I didn't realize is that it was the original cost would have been $650,000 to implement. And we cut that in half by doing it ourselves
Yep.
Right.
instead of the outside. So, that's a good savings right there, but it's an outstanding program.
I think so.
And I forget exactly what it says, but it says that it's the best insurance you're going to get.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So hope.
And interviewed the wastewater or the water team, and he did that article for us. I thought he did a great job. And
It's fantastic.
handing that off to the Gazette to put something in so that people know, be at the farm.
And the exposure and, it's,
And as it gets a little closer, we'll probably put a Facebook post and say, hey, don't forget farmers market. You guys will be there. So that ought to push our take rate up a little bit.
right. I was going to ask Trevor, what is our take rate now? Subscription?
What are we, 600, what are we at?
I think we're about 38%.
Where you want to be 50?
Darrell got 8 more folks to sign up just last week. And so I think that pushed us at 38%.
Okay, good.
So we want to be at 50. That's our goal for this. I think they'll be able to surpass.
I got an eye on water story. It happened Saturday evening. We had a call of a possible water main break, but at 8:30 or something. And I'm like, oh no, water main break.
Yeah.
Come to find out, it was somebody's meter up by First Street. Their frost plate blew out. So we had to replace the meter. But we took that opportunity to talk to the residents there that, do you have eye on water? And they said, what's that? And so we were able to talk to them, show them the meter, show them how it worked. And so that was another successful sign up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a water main break.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
I agree, Trevor. If knowledge, a little bit of knowledge about the system.
And they could see the meter.
A long way.
Facing the meter, they could see it, they could touch it and,
Yeah.
we're really excited to get signed up. Of course, Dan had all the information on his phone,
Right
the account numbers.
Oh, yeah.
In there. and
Real.
It was great. So.
Same as what I did. Okay.
These guys have become great salesmen,
Kudos. Hey.
except there's nothing for sale. It's free.
Yeah, right.
You're like, what?
What are you trying to
What do
sell
you?
me?
How much? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Free.
They're really a free lunch.
How much is it?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
thank you guys for
Welcome.
everything that you guys do. My apologies. I did skip over,
Public comment.
So, any public comment?
No, except I would love to hear a little bit more from Trevor about the mixing zone
Mhm.
situation.
That's part of our permit.
Could you say a little bit more
And
about?
when our permit was renewed, about 3 years ago, our permit got renewed and one of the restrictions they had in there is we had to perform a mixing zone study. The last time a mixing zone study had been performed for the city was 1999.
I'm gonna say.
So they're requiring us to do a mixing zone study. It's a study that kind of it's whatever the plume rate is out in the creek itself, that's the engineers will work up a nice map system and a detailed report on the mixing zone study.
Good.
They look at everything from temperature, Jan, to the output of that in front and behind our system. And so, like Trevor says, it's just a technicality of our permit. And we hadn't done one since 1999. And as you know, the new plant was built since then. So they said, let's get an updated mixing zone.
Our discharge point changed from 1999 because we were treating with the lagoons at that time. And so everything was different with the system. We used chlorine at that time and the discharge point was different at that time. We didn't utilize the wetlands across the highway. So that's why they're requiring a new study to be done.
And the actual level of the mixing zone study that we have to do now is a lower level study because our plant hasn't been improved so much when they rebuilt the new plant. So it's more of a technicality than it is anything, but it's a requirement. And so obviously we're gonna,
Does it indicate the health of the wetlands also when they, no, nothing like that? Okay, very good.
not necessarily a benefit, but there's no harm either. And that's.
Oh, no harm. Okay, very good. There's no harm.
They probably would get an overhead shot though of the plume area just to
Yeah.
determine visually if there's some kind of significant changes. Other than that, they probably wouldn't look at it.
Yeah.
But it's very common, Jan, to have a DEQ. Well, every permit has its conditions. And from what Trevor has said, I think that it's probably a lot cleaner now than 23 years ago in 1999 when they did the same study. So I think there'll be some positive.
Great.
Okay, thank you, guys. Good of the order.
I have one issue that is rearing its head again. So there's a little bit of fervor on both sides of it. And we talked about this a couple of months ago, the recycle center and what's going on there with the few individuals taking some valuables from there. So just to review, you know, the recycle center is designed, it's state implemented, and I think that under statute, the city has to have a recycle center, at least for 4,000 residents and higher. And I don't know how we exactly count the 4,000 residents, if some of the part-timers or the influx of folks
It's
count into that
Time
4,000. Anyway, we have a recycle center, and the reason for the recycle center is to gather recyclables,
Mhm.
and most especially the more valuable ones, because those are the ones that subsidize the program.
Okay.
And anything that is valuable that's taken out of there, of course, has to be subsidized either by increasing fees or through taxpayer money. Also, whenever we have the recyclables come there, we reduce the amount that goes to the trash, which reduces our landfill
Mhm.
costs and porting costs from the recycle center. And I know that most of the stuff that ends up at the recycle center is trash, probably way more than 50%. So without subsidizing that through actual valuables that are left in the recycle system,
I see.
then that needs to be subsidized in other ways. There are plenty of cans, as you said in your trash talk earlier, Karen, about the town and Tolovana Park and Ecola and Indian Beach, and even clear down to Arcadia and Hug Point and Short Sands, all have a lot of the cans and the drink containers that can be returned for the deposit without somebody having to come and take them out of the recycle system and put them and drive them down the block and get the deposit for them. So I think that the intention of the recycle program is to leave those recyclables at the recycle center. And not everybody who goes to the recycle center wants them removed. They want to benefit the recycle system as much as possible by the deposit not being collected, which goes to fund and grow the recycle program, and that those recyclables, once they're in the recycle program, stay there. So the program is intended, from what I see on and it's pretty obvious what I see on the internet page, that it's intended to encourage people to take them out of the waste stream and put them into the recycle stream, and not have them taken out of the recycle stream and run down the block and get a deposit for them. I did a back of the napkin calculation on, which I think is very conservative, about how much money is going out of that recycle center just by observations over the last few months. And it's somewhere between $45,000 and $50,000 at 5 33-gallon bags a day, 5 days a week. And that's based on 10 cents per can. And it's somewhere between, well, I came up with $42,240 per year. And that's all, of course, tax-free. There's no tax being paid on anybody that as that could be potential income. It's not taxed. But to put that in perspective, I don't think we would allow the person that works at the recycle yard to pull out all the valuables and then take them to his house or to the store or resell them or get a deposit back on them. And I think the same would be true, of course, for anybody that worked in the office. If they were taking resources from the office and returning them to Walmart or something and getting money for them, I doubt we would stand for that. And I think that's a fair analogy of what's going on there. The state takes the recycle program very seriously.
Mhm.
And in fact, any misuse or abuse of that recycle program can result and has resulted in millions of dollars of fines over the past, since 1971, when it was implemented. So I want to get some committee thoughts on that. I think that using the city's facilities to gather the recyclables and then allowing a select few individuals to benefit by taking those recyclables out and getting some kind of a refund for them. I just don't think that's the intention. And I think that's just not good management of that facility, and maybe even borders on fraud, because people are assuming that their recyclables, the valuables that they take there, are going to benefit the system. Otherwise, they might just take them down the block and get the refund themselves. So it really benefits the recycle program in two ways. One, the dime isn't collected, it's kept in the fund. And number two, they have the raw materials that they're getting for free that go into the system and sold and then subsidize, backwards subsidize the program itself on the state level. But it's very minimal to the cost of the citizens and the cost of the state, that $42,000 spread over how many million people. But nevertheless, if it happened at every recycle facility, it could add up a bit. And I think that, we shouldn't subsidize that. Now, I understand there's a need on the other side, but I also know that there are a lot of service jobs that take minimal skills. And I think I've also seen that there are tons of cans and bottles in this town and Tolavana and all the other state parks around that it wouldn't take much effort, honestly, because people that use those parks are primarily from out of state, and a lot of those states don't even have a deposit on them. So they don't even know they paid the deposit, and they just throw them in a garbage can. There are tons of those, especially at Tolavana and Short Sands, very crowded, a lot of garbage there. And it behooves the system also to take those recyclables out of the waste stream, because as you said, the porter fees are less, the landfill fees are less, there's less garbage, and that's the intention of the program itself.
Mhm.
Also, the folks that are getting those cans there are no different from any other seniors here. They get the Social Security and they get any state benefits. And I just don't think that allowing a very few people to benefit from that recycle center is a good idea.
So first, I want to say thanks for bringing that topic up and sharing your concerns, and I appreciate that perspective. What I do want to do is make sure my employees are safe and that they're not put in a position of code enforcement where they feel insecure of having to advise someone of something. So what I would plan to do, Steve, is reach out to code enforcement and get some assistance and being able to address the folks that tend to come and want to volunteer and help at the recycle and collect cans or whatever they're doing. I've kept an eye on that. I haven't seen that it's been problematic, but I appreciate your perspective and your calculation. I've talked to my team and to Andrew specifically about it. And so I think where Public Works could probably use some help is something in our ordinance that's clear saying that this is not allowable? I mean, you would think, just like you say, Steve.
Well,
would be
it is.
obvious. I'm sorry, let me finish. I think that you would hope that it would be obvious of what that, just like you've laid out here, could be perceived as. But again, I don't put my folks in a position of being code enforcement. So I think it's twofold. The city would probably benefit from tightening up some sort of an ordinance that addresses that. And then it doesn't put my team in a difficult position, and it helps code enforcement be able to enforce something because it's documented, whether it's an ordinance or a policy or however they need to do it. I'll reach out and get some assistance with that because I appreciate what you brought up.
Okay. Well, 2019 Oregon Supreme Court decision said that it's against the law and is punishable by up to a felony to take any garbage out of my garbage can or cans out of my recycle bin. They call it canning, and that's illegal statewide to do that from garbage cans or any private property. Now, the question comes in whether or not that's private property or not. So it is a quasi business intended for profit, and I think it can be construed as a private concern, or at least a city private concern. I mean, just because I go in and
That's something, Steve, I'll have to hand over
something
to
from
the
sure.
department and let them handle that. That's not public works. It's not in our purview to be able to go to that extent. All I can do is bring the concern forward and ask for some assistance in helping us address that.
And I think the other thing, when you're speaking with the attorneys, the folks that are over there volunteering, I don't know if they have a volunteer release form that they're filling out, but they are using tools and they are managing logistics with the folks that are working there. I've overheard them many times about, hey, are you through with this bin? I'm going to move it over here. If you want to go over here, oh, give me a few minutes. I don't, so efficiency also takes a hit on that as well. So Public Works, because the people who are canning in that facility are coordinating with the employee that's working there about when and where to move the bins that are on site. And honestly, I'm not the only one who has witnessed that. Other people have come to me and said the same thing.
We have outside people taking the recycle out of the recycle bin and then depositing it somewhere else.
Well,
correct?
They're getting the deposit from Fresh Foods, or I've seen them down at Fresh Foods taking those bags and putting them in the bottle.
Okay, very good. So they're taking them out of the recycle area and taking them elsewhere and getting the refund, getting the deposit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I've kind of seen that when I'm down there because I recycle everything. I've seen people like go in there and they put something, but then I've seen them taking them out. Taking the cans out and then leaving. So
again, just to wrap this up, I will take this to the police department and ask for some assistance. And if the police department needs a code update in order to be able to enforce it, they can probably go talk to this person or persons. But again, they're going to have something in our ordinance or a policy that gives them the ability to enforce it. I'll have to ask about the state canning and let them chase that. But my response to you is I will address this with the police department and get some additional help. We have talked to this person and we've done as much as Public Works has the authority to do, or that my team feels safe or I feel safe in doing. I only know of one individual. He's a local gentleman. He does help at the recycle. And so beyond that, I have not witnessed anybody else, but my response to you is this will be addressed with the police department giving us some sort of support beyond what we're able to do at this stage. Okay.
Can I just add maybe an additional perspective? And I appreciate Steve's calculation on the money and the number of cans and maybe the lost profit. And I think that's a valid point. I'm a little more global in addition to that in my perspective. So Karen, when you do research this and look at policy, to me, the issue is broader issue is allowing private entrepreneurship to enter and operate within a public facility. Because that's really what's going on here. And
I just want to clarify something. I've heard a couple of you guys say that. I just need to clarify. What I have personally witnessed and what my team has witnessed is this person does not go within the fencing of the recycle to fish they're not dumpster diving. That's a safety issue.
That's not true.
And that's where my employees have every authority to say, you can't be in here doing that. It's outside the fencing area. When the line grows, this person's assisting the people that are coming to recycle. They may get frustrated with 4 or 5 cars stacked up. They don't want to wait. And this is what the person's assisting. I have personally witnessed that.
how do they recover the cans if they don't enter the confines of the facility?
Right.
I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
How does the private, we'll call them entrepreneur, recover the cans if they don't go within the confines of the facility?
They're assisting the people that are waiting in line to get into recycle. That's what I've witnessed. I have not seen this person inside the facility, inside the gates, working. It is a local gentleman of our community. And so we've counseled him on what is acceptable for his volunteer of him wanting to help there. And so that's all I can tell you. I think, again, I'm just going to say, I've heard the issue. It does not belong in the Public Works Committee. It's more appropriate in the Parks Committee than it would be here. But instead of handing it off to yet another group of folks, I'm going to go to the PD after the meeting and I'm going to express what has been brought up, have Chief listen to this discussion in our meeting and give me the direction on how they can help us resolve this.
A couple of points. One, as recently as a few days ago, he was in pushing a broom and using a shovel and his picker to get inside the bins.
Okay.
So that's very recent.
Okay, thank
The
you.
other thing is he does work with other individuals from time to time.
It's helpful if you're witnessing this,
And
snap a picture so that I've got something to give the PD instead of just somebody's word of mouth and I got no proof it's happening when I've got some people saying, I've never seen that. I haven't witnessed it. So it kind of puts us at a disadvantage of going and accusing something of someone that we have no viable proof. And so if you're seeing this, snap a picture.
I will take pictures.
Then it helps me. And
The other thing,
it helps the PD. Again, I'm not code enforcement.
right.
We have limits on what my team can do. I will not put my team in an unsafe situation. And that's all I can say. I think we've completed our discussion on this topic and I would ask the chair to please move on.
Yeah, I think.
No, I have a couple of other things I want to point out. One of them is that they are accosting people in that facility with political ideas that are unconventional and people feel threatened by that. The second thing is that I thought Public Works ran that facility, and if they don't, I apologize. I should have brought it up in another venue. Does Public Works manage that facility?
The parks would be more appropriate for recycle. Kirk participates in the Parks Committee. We usually address everything concerning parks, recycle, anything that's outside of our infrastructure is what belongs in this.
Okay, and I wouldn't ever ask to put anybody at risk by approaching any individual for any reason.
Thank you.
Of course.
That's right.
See, we appreciate what your concerns and thank you for bringing them to Public Works. Karen will let us know what comes out of this and we'll expect that.
And I've got one other, just so I understand, it's more of a knowledge, but I recycle myself and put it in the recycle, the big red bin,
Yeah.
big red, and they pick it up every second Friday. Okay. Where does that go? Where does that recycle contents go? Does it go to the recycle bin here?
It goes to recycle
ecology.
facility
Okay.
and they
Very-
use.
Totally separate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing. You can advise people that encourage them to go through the recycle program. And it goes to Recology.
Right.
That way it completely stays out of our bins. Just one idea, so.
Some people don't have
Thank you.
Thank
recycle
you, guys.
containers, but
I do have a couple of things for good of the order.
Okay.
We have September 13th, we have a blood drive at the
Okay.
Chamber of Commerce.
yay.
So that's one. And then September 17th, we have a beach cleanup.
Hmm,
Anybody that wants to volunteer, let me know.
okay.
September 13th, the
Blood drive.
blood drive, and then 17th is the beach cleanup.
Okay,
So
Where can I find more information about the beach cleanup on the 17th?
Solve, SOLV website,
Which one?
SOLV website.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Sign up now.
Website, okay.
thank you, Janae.
I'd be happy to send you the link.
Okay.
But yes. All right, anybody else for good of the order? Yes, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.